Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tigers Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Schulte, and to be honest, happy to be here, considering the, as my wife and I have started calling it, the sickness sampler that has been plaguing the two of us and friends of ours for about a month and a half now. But I'm well enough to come to you and drop some knowledge and some opinions. The opinions voiced on this podcast are specifically mine. Anyway, they are mine. They're probably not very popular with the Tigers front office, but that's okay because nobody in the Tigers front office listens to this podcast. Anyway, so with all that being said, thank you for listening, and let's get into it, shall we? Quick programming note. You're going to note that this still says season 4. Season 5 for me doesn't start until spring training starts, which opening day, pitchers and catchers report, I believe in 35 days or 36 days from today. So that's a good thing. Monday, February 10th is when pitchers and catchers report across the league. And nowadays, a lot of your position players do as well. So there were a lot of times when I could remember Miguel Cabrera showing up when pitchers and catchers would report because he wanted to get his timing down. And he wanted to see live pitching. And he wanted to get work in that you normally don't get in when you've got a bunch of invitees, non-roster invitees showing up that take some of that time. So, yeah, a lot of your firmly ensconced position players will do that for that specific reason. So, I digress. I want you, if you will, to picture an analog meter. Now, why would a person who has a YouTube channel be talking about analog devices, you ask? Just humor me, if you would. So picture an analog meter, like a meter to measure current or a meter to measure audio signals, sound levels, things of that nature. Now, this meter has a screen on it, and that screen has a needle on it, and that needle is at the bottom of the screen. And as the specific item that this is supposed to be measuring increases, the needle moves higher and higher on the screen based on the scale. With the Tigers off season this season, I can honestly tell you, I don't think there's any power going to said analog meter to move the needle. Gleyber Torres doesn't do it for me. Alex Cobb doesn't do it for me. First of all, you had Walker Buehler out there. Granted, it would have cost you a draft pick. 2 draft picks, I believe. But you have those. You could have gotten Walker Buehler. Jack Flaherty is still out there. Charlie Morton was out there. You're going to tell me Alex Cobb is better than Charlie Morton? You're going to tell me Alex Cobb is better than Jack Flaherty? Alex Cobb is better than Matt Boyd? Is better than Walker Buehler? Alex Cobb? Really? You say at your closing press conference, Mr. Harris, that if we have to spend the money on a player, we'll spend money on a player. If we have to trade for a player, we'll trade for a player. But our goal is to improve the roster this year, to get a right-handed bat, to shore up the rotation. And you give me Alex Cobb at the winter meetings and Gleyber Torres just before Christmas. Sorry, just after Christmas. Did you even plug the meter in or put the batteries in the meter to give it the power that you need to move the needle? Because right now, I don't think anything special has happened with this roster. Colt Keith moved to first base. I think that's the smartest thing that they could have done for Colt Keith. I really do. Oh, he only had a year at second. Well, yeah. Oh, he could have filled out your third base position. No, actually, he couldn't. The reason he moved to second is because he had a bad shoulder. And they wanted to preserve his shoulder. So they moved him to second, where he wasn't going to have to make as long of a throw. So clearly, they saw something in that shoulder that made them think that moving him to second base was a good idea. And when they signed him to the contract extension that they signed him to, I have a feeling that they knew at some point he was going to play first base. For any number of reasons, not the least of which Scott Boras represents Spencer Torkelson. So they probably figured they wouldn't get a deal done to keep Torkelson in town. And you know what? Based on last year, I don't know that I want to give him a deal anyway. Based on his postseason performance, I don't know that I want to give him a deal anyway. But you basically move Colt Keith to first, and so Spencer Torkelson is now your odd man out. He's a platoon DH, basically. Sometime first baseman. Sort of like Kerry Carpenter, sometimes a right fielder. Only when Matt Vierling and Winsell Perez have both had flu-like symptoms is Kerry Carpenter a sometimes right fielder. Like Riley Green has to be hurt. Winsell Perez has to have the flu, and Matt Vierling has to be playing left field in order for Kerry Carpenter to be a right fielder these days. Did you watch the wild card series? Did you watch the divisional series? AJ Hinch knew that his best defensive outfield does not have Kerry Carpenter in it. So really, Kerry Carpenter and Spencer Torkelson now are platooning at DH. Because why? Because Gleyber Torres is now a Tiger. Happy New Year. Here's your Gleyber Torres on a plate. 1 year, $15 million. And you know what? Alex Cobb, 1 year, $15 million. You could have gotten Charlie Morton for that same price, just so you know. Better pitcher. More durable. You could have gotten Matt Boyd for 2 years at the same price, basically. 2 years at $29 million, so $15 million a year for this year and $14 million for next year. You get a second year discount. Not sure what you could have gotten Walker Buehler for or Jack Flaherty. Oh, Jack Flaherty, by the way, who pitched really well for you guys last year. But, $15 million for Alex Cobb, the guy that was sitting on a couch, contemplating filing his retirement papers, thinking, what am I going to do after baseball? Well, I guess I'll play one more year in Detroit. So Gleyber Torres for $15 million for a year. And I'm not as upset about this deal as I am about Alex Cobb. Because Gleyber Torres posts, folks. Gleyber Torres posts. Gleyber Torres, while he's a worse defensive second baseman than Colt Keith ended up being at the end of the year, kind of makes up for it a little bit offensively. And I'm not saying that he's Shohei Ohtani. I'm not saying that he's the second coming of Lou Whitaker or Joe Morgan. I'm not even saying that he's Placido Polanco. He's Gleyber Torres. But he's going to hit you double-digit home runs. In Comerica Park, he's probably going to hit you a ton of doubles. So he's going to give you some extra base power. He's going to give you leadership in the clubhouse. And he's going to teach these young kids how to hit. He's going to teach these young kids how to stay disciplined in the strike zone. This is a guy that was leading off Game 5 of the World Series for the New York Yankees. Yankees don't get to the World Series without Gleyber Torres. He only hit 15 homers last year, but he walked more than he struck out, and he didn't strike out that much. So, and he doesn't have a very high chase rate. Doesn't have a very high whiff rate. He's not swinging at bad pitches. So I don't mind this deal. I just wish Detroit had done something else. Even if they had signed Ha-Seong Kim, which they still might do. Even if they'd said, all right, we're not going to try to get Alex Bregman. We're going to sign Ha-Seong Kim to play third. And yeah, he's got a shoulder issue, but you know, when he's healthy, he can come by and play third. And we'll patch together third base with Jace Young and Matt Vierling and Andy Ibanez and Zach McKinstry until Ha-Seong Kim gets better and can come play. I could live with that. I would have preferred to see the Tigers go out and sign Anthony Santander and Ha-Seong Kim, or sign Alex Bregman. We'll get to that in a quick minute. But then I'm a little more excited about this team. What changes all of this is if Detroit does sign Alex Bregman, and then they sign Jack Flaherty. Because at that point, can you imagine your rotation? Tarek Skubal, Jack Flaherty, Reese Olson, Jackson Jobe, Alex Cobb. Well, what about Casey Mize? No. Let him figure it out in AAA. What about Kenta Maeda? Bullpen guy. Sorry. His days of starting are over. What about Matt Manning? Can't stay healthy. Why should I trust him? Depth pieces. Great depth pieces. What about Brant Hurter? All right, I could live with Brant Hurter. What about Kader Montero? Great depth piece. Again, because you know good and well Alex Cobb is going to get hurt. You know good and well you're going to need somebody to fill in for Jack Flaherty from time to time because he's going to need more injections in his back. So you sign Alex Bregman, you sign Jack Flaherty, that needle moves 3/4 of the way to the top of the screen. This team becomes a Central Division contender overnight. this team wins the Central if everybody stays healthy and produces the way that their baseball cards say they will. Sign me up for Alex Bregman. Sign me up for a long-term deal with Jack Flaherty. Maybe 4 or 5 years for Jack. For Bregman, 6 years at 162. Years 3, 4, 5, and 6 are option years. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sign me up for that. Jack Flaherty, give me 5 years at 85. 5 at 85 million. Just over 16 million a year, 17 million a year. I'll take that. Then we can sign Tarik Skubal to an extension. And Tarik Skubal's extension better be 11 years at 330 million a year, or 330 million total. Give me 33 million a year for Tarik Skubal for 11 years. I will take that and I will run with it. Because he's worth every penny. Max Fried just got himself 27.5 million. Tarik Skubal's worth far more than Max Fried ever was. Any news that happens, I'll be back to report about it, to talk about it, give you my opinions about it, give you my thoughts, and all the things. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can. TigersBaseballPodcast@gmail.com. It's the world's longest email address. I'm proud of that. At TB Podcast on TB Podcast at tweezecake.social is your Mastodon link. At Tigers or at Podcast Tigers on Twitter, or leave a comment here on the YouTube channel. And until next time, folks, thanks for listening. Go Tigers.